The first thing I want to say about painting classes is that, I don't think any of us are going to build a gallery next to John and try to put him out of business. We're here to have fun. So that's kind of the number one thing to remember. And also, we kind of went through and we were looking for pictures that we all thought would be fun to paint. So we found a rooster, and I took that painting the other night and made this rooster. And this rooster is somewhat different than the one that I was painting from. And also, the rooster I paint tonight is probably going to look different from this one. And that's all to say that I feel like that's the beauty of art. Like, if we want to just go print off a bunch of posters and look at them, we can do that. But everybody's is going to look different, and that's good. The first part of this is the drawing of the rooster. And the other night, there's some proportions and stuff, and you don't have to have it perfect again, but I'm going to show you some things that you can do to try to kind of keep things in line. Bruce made some charcoal transfers. So if you are somebody that doesn't want to mess around with trying to get something perfectly on the canvas, all you do is you put this trace paper on your canvas, and you draw over the lines that are there, and you'll have that outline. And I'm going to show you how to start drawing the rooster. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find what's about the center of my canvas. And I'm just going to draw a line across. Don't worry about pencil marks. The eraser on here is basically theoretical. You're going to paint over it, you just need to have a guide. So don't worry about making the perfect line, just gesture it in there. So the center point on this rooster is about here, if you can see it. And what's good to draw first, I believe, is the eyeball, because it's about 2 inches above center in the middle of the canvas. So just draw an eyeball for that rooster. About the size of a dime, or if you want a bigger head, you can do a bigger eye. It's all good. Once you have that eyeball in, then you just have to draw a rough framework of where that rooster's head is going to be. So I'm going to draw kind of what would end up being the skull around that rooster. So I'm going to draw a circle around the rooster, around the eyeball. Then from that circle, I'm going to come and draw the back of his neck. So you come around that circle and down, and then it kind of flares out. And then it ends up about in that corner. It's just a guide. We're not painting yet. We're just trying to get a little bit of a guide in here. Alright, next is the beak. So you go about 45 degrees and a couple inches down. So just think about a bird beak's kind of like this, circles down, and then you come up. So once you have this rooster thing, you want to find the points on your bird's head where it meets. So it meets here, and then it comes down here. You're trying to kind of find where you need to end up when you're done drawing, okay? And also maybe make a mark for how tall you want it to be. And all these things will help, because sometimes you can kind of get lost in drawing something. So I'm going to make a mark kind of 45 up from his eyeball, and then I'll start at the top of his beak. I'm going to come out and up and draw a few of these, the glove fingers. I'm going to draw a few of those. Then I'm going to do this little doodad. It comes around the eye and down and makes that little beard. And then the last part is just coming down from his beard and just finishing that neck. And it can just be a gesture, because you can always change it. We're going to start mixing our background color. I don't know if you want to try to match your paint color or whatever to your wall or something, I don't know. But just whatever paint color you want to do, we'll start mixing it up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make kind of a teal-y turquoise color. So, you have an array of brushes on your table. Grab something what you would consider a medium brush. The best piece of advice I can give you is use water. A lot of people go straight from the paint onto the canvas, and you're not gonna have a good time. Okay? So every time you go into the paint, go into the water first. Get that paint watered down a little bit. So I'm gonna grab a pretty good amount of blue. Keep grabbing water and try to bring it to kind of a nice consistency where it'll lay on the canvas. Then I'm going to grab just a little dab of yellow. And the thing about turquoise is it's closer to blue than it is to green. You might not like your color right away because it's going to be pretty dark. Once you get where you can see it's got a little bit of a green hue, start grabbing some white and mix it in, and then you'll start to see that turquoise come out. So once you get a color you kind of like, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go around the bird and try to keep the outline to the outside and the bird in the inside, and you can erase whatever lines you don't like just with paint. If you want, when you're going in some of the close areas, leave them for you to do it with your small brush. And if your paint isn't just gliding across the canvas, grab some more water. So if you like the color you're using, you're going to want to try to kind of cover the canvas with it because it's hard to get the exact same color. I'm just going to go and cover the canvas. As some of you guys are seeing, some of these coats of paint might need more than one. That's alright, you can come back. It just doesn't really pay to do it until it's dry, otherwise it's just going to become one layer. So get that brush nice and cleaned out. I'm going to get my smaller brush in the water.
Oh, is this video?
I'm going into the red. Remember to get that water in the brush. You don't want to go straight from the tube onto the canvas unless you're Jackson Pollock. He's some guy. You want it to be kind of the consistency of, I don't know, whiteout maybe? And I'm using a smaller brush because I'm going to try to come around. The trick here is to not lay your hand in the paint to brace it. So I'm going to come around as... One thing to remember is probably a lot of you guys have square brushes, and this might sound kind of obvious, but if you turn them the long way and keep the pressure back, it's going to be a fairly crisp line. If you press into it, it'll thicken up. Remember to play with that brush. This part is a little intricate, so if it takes you a little more time, that's alright. The beauty of paint is you can always paint over it. One thing to think about as you're filling in that red is if you want to add a little bit of depth by adding lights and darks. If you want to make it dark, you add just a little bit of blue to your red and it'll darken it up. Go to that medium brush and I'm going to fill in. Don't add black to the red to darken it. add blue. I mean, you can add black if that's what you want to do, but blue makes a nice dark red. Black makes a black looking red. So I'm going to add those darks in a little bit. Okay, so then there's that kind of weird part on his head where the ear is and everything. I'm just going to add a little pink in here where that googly part is. I should have studied chicken anatomy. Kind of a light pink. The yellow, I'm going to use a smaller brush because they're just kind of small areas that need it. With yellow, to lighten it up, you add white like you did with the other color. But to darken yellow, you add a little red because it brings it closer to orange, and that deepens it. Where the beaks come together, just a little line there, and a little bit at the base to give it depth. Then I'll add a little white on the top of the beak to give it a little shine. So the next thing with that yellow I'm going to do is I'm going to paint his eyeball. Most times the eye doesn't look finished until the final touches because it's just got some little details that add a lot. Dark yellow, yellow, white, and black. I'm going to start working on what I call kind of the final touches of this rooster. So hopefully your painting's drying a little bit so you're going to be able to add another layer in places. I'm going to go back to the eye, and the components of the eye that are important, there's a little bit of a dark outline. You can get that by using black, or you can get that by mixing yellow with a little bit of red and just a dash of blue, and it gives you kind of a muddy brown color. And it's almost like that brown on the outside of your eye. And then the next thing you want to do is add that black for the center of the pupil. And then once you get that, then you want to let it dry again. And you don't want to get that glint in the eye of the white until that eye is dry, because otherwise it's not going to hit there. I'm going to get a really, really light blue, like a powder blue. This rooster has a little bit of depth on the white, and the shadow, generally, you might think a shadow is black, but usually a shadow is blue. It adds blue to everything. Basically what you want to do is, I started out and I felt like there would be shade kind of underneath here into the front of his chest. I'm just going to add a little bit of blue in that area. And then I'm just going to kind of wash it down a little bit and bring it down on the back side. Just some really loose brush strokes. And see how it gives it a little bit of roundness and a little bit of depth to it. And you don't want to, you just want to be gestural and just let it flow. It's not going to be perfect, you just give it a little bit of shape. Then if you got too much blue, you can come back with pure white and bring in the highlight feathers. And I added just kind of a little tiny bit of red and got a little bit of pink in there too, just to add some flair. Then I'm going to come back with pure white, and what you want to try to do is a technique called wet and wet. You want to keep that paint that you're working with wet, so that kind of helps. Alright, so once you get that body painted in, I'm going to come back with some white, and your eye should be pretty dry. And I'm just going to give it that little glint of white and completely screw it up. On that rooster that's up there, I took a darker color of my background and I just went around the whole rooster with that darker background color.